You really can't tell just by looking at synastry whether a relationship is going to last or not. It's really based on how advanced the individuals are and how conscious they are and how much awareness they have and what they want in their lives. But what you can use the synastry in astrology for is to understand some of the hidden dynamics, because that's like when we're looking at the synastry chart, you're laying one chart over the other, you can see how the especially personal planets like the sun, moon, Venus, Mercury interact with each other, and then even the social planets, because if you're looking at Jupiter and Saturn, you can see how things like responsibility and beliefs interact or how they're different. So let's take a look at JoJo's and Chris's chart, for instance. If you want to look at how are the individuals similar or not with respect to how they satisfy themselves emotionally, you would look at the moons. In this case, the moons are what you would call inconjunct, and that would mean that they really get their emotional satisfaction through different means. They're not really connected that way. So sometimes it can be just kind of like an awkward difference. I've seen that when they're one sign apart, that doesn't tend to cause too much problem. Some people will say it does with the moons, but I don't know. I haven't seen that. And then you want to look at what do they value or how do they treat money. So you would look at the Venuses. And in this case, they're in a square by sign. So sometimes there can be a lot of need to adjust things. There can be a conflict in values or how you want to be loved or how you express love or how you handle money. And then you can look at Mercury, that's communication. So, what is the style of communication? So, for Chris, he has a fire Mercury, and for JoJo, she has an earth Mercury. So, there's going to be sort of a different, more fiery type of communication and more practical, calm kind of communication here. And when you look at how they interact, again, you have an inconjunct. So, are these two people who don't mind having to make sort of different adjustments in order to communicate? And then you have the sun. So, the sun is the solar purpose, who they are at the core. And those are both in earth signs, in Capricorn and Taurus. So, there's a bit more harmony in terms of going in the same direction from a soul perspective. And then you can see with Jupiter, they are in a sextile, which means maybe their beliefs are in harmony with each other. And then again, we have Saturn, where you find responsibility or restriction there again. And so having Saturn in a trine it means that you kind of take responsibility in similar ways and thinking, and since they're in air signs. The other thing that you look at for longevity, a lot of times people say Saturn. You do have Chris's Saturn conjunct her Mars, which is pretty interesting. I'm going to do another video on why Saturn is really important for JoJo right now, and especially as it relates to this relationship and the relationship with her ex. But you can see that Chris's Saturn is conjunct exactly her Mars, which actually rules her. So this is there's a very strong bond there, and a lot of times Saturn can be like that. But again, even with Saturn, it can just depend, like, does the individual want to have that type of close bond? There are a lot of things to consider, but I think the synastry helps to understand the dynamics that are involved in a relationship and not the longevity. Sometimes people will look at the composite chart, which is where you calculate the midpoints between all of the points in the chart to determine the nature of the relationship. We cannot do that in this case because we don't have Chris's birth time and you need an exact birth time. So again, just use synastry to understand the relationship better, not to determine whether it's going to last.